participated in my first game jam. I don't know why I haven't done one before. I've been making games for years, and it never crossed my mind. Until one day, I saw Brackeys was hosting one, and I was like, alright, bet. But let me tell you, I came into this thing overconfident. The mama! Or hungry like the Vietnamese. Oh yeah, and it's day 6 and I don't even have a fucking game. Hold up, we need to pause there because we're getting ahead of ourselves. We need to go to where this story starts. So let's rewind to a week ago and me making the project. Alright, now that we have our project open, I need to tell you guys the plan. This is a game jam, so I have 7 days to make a game, and the theme's risk it for the biscuit. My idea is, I want to make a game where it's just one room, and these 4 corridors, chambers, I don't know what to call them, but they're on each side of the room, and you come up on a platform in the center. After, enemies will start spawning on each side of the room, and once you beat them all, you take your platform down, and then you gamble for upgrades where it's a 50-50 shot for either something good or bad in this Blotcha-like card game. So I think it's a pretty good plan. Spoiler, it was not a good plan. On the bright side, at least it made for a fire intro. Alright, now that the plan is explained, I would say we can start, but we need to install our packages first. What I just did there is install a bunch of packages, which are basically Unity DLC. Anyone can make tools and sell them on the Unity asset store for people to use, and I just added a couple of important ones, which I'll talk about later. And after an hour of just installing things, we could start the project. The first thing I wanted to do was make the map, so I got my tile map sprites and started painting out my play area. We could start with the background, then some floors, add some walls, and that's a good shape. Now, we need to make it look nicer. First, we can make lamp. And I love the way this thing swings around. Now, let's make it glow and add some particles. Next, we can add a torch. For this, it's just a sprite and some particles. But we have enough of a layout. Now, I need a protagonist for my story, which will be my friend Steven. He just doesn't know he's the protagonist yet. But he will soon, because I went with the Super Mario Classic. I kidnapped his girlfriend and put her in a cage. I then spent the rest of day 1 setting more stuff up. I changed the walls to not be singe your eyes out blue and made the top floor look nicer. Like, look at this door. I then set up Steven so he could look up and down when you hit W or S. I also made it so he could jump. Of course, not that high. And before going to sleep, I sketched out the area I was going to make into the TV. It's going to be the guide and antagonist of the game. But for now, he's just a TV. And it was late, so it's sleepy time. Good night. The next day, once I booted up my computer, I started by working on my menu. But to explain me making the menu, I first need to explain one of my main project goals. I wanted to make this game feel good. Pretty stupid idea for a game jam, but I was gonna try it anyways. But one of the main ways I was gonna do this are the 3 packages I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, with the most important one literally being an asset called Feel. This is basically the ultimate manager for controlling quote-unquote juiciness.
Brother,
Hey, their words, not mine. Feel works by basically giving you unlimited options. For example, I can move objects, shake the camera, do wacky effects, and then once I find some that I like, I can combine them in this little tower, and once I hit play, if I've timed everything right, it will play this cool little cutscene. And while Feel is a little more complicated to explain, the other 2 assets are much more simple. Dotween makes it so you can animate through code. I use this for stuff like punch rotation whenever you hover over text, and scaling when you push a button.
They have it, lazy.
Now last but not least, it's not actually all in one sprite shader. This just makes stuff glow. It's actually Text Animator Pro. This is probably my most used asset ever, because it's really simple and just easily lets me make text animations and transitions. And with that, I'm done explaining things, so now we can go back to making the game. So I started by making the menu. Instead of Steven's girlfriend just sitting there,
Help me!
I used Feel to make a cutscene by changing her position, rotation, adding some squash and stretch animations, some particle effects, sound, a bit of post-processing, and we can combine them and bam, nice animation when the game first starts. I then made the menu using Dotween and Text Mesh Pro, and once it was in a good enough state, I moved on. Since it's a game jam, I don't have enough time to just work on one thing, so you're gonna see me bouncing around a lot. The next thing I moved to is a trapdoor. This didn't really work, but it's fine for now. I then went back to decorating. I put a turret at the top, added the starting platform, gave Steven's girlfriend some heart aura, made some spikes at the bottom, and added these skulls in case you forgot. I then pivoted again, and started work on the intro cutscene. I put Steven in his starting cage, and then made a cutscene with feel. But I'm not gonna show you all the individual parts again, because, yeah. But whenever you hit play, it's a cutscene of Steven's girlfriend getting yoinked. I then checked the time, and it was 2:30 a.m., so it's sleepy time again. I started this day by making what would eventually become the main mechanic of the game, dice rolls. Please. Okay, now, more specifically, the dice are to roll for modifiers. Wait, that's not right. More specifically, the dice are to roll for modifiers. After my beautiful voice work, I made the dice launch higher and actually stop. I then decided to give Steven a way out of his cage. I made it so when you right click, you can parry. Now the starting cutscene was looking pretty good. Risk to survive. I then decided to end the day with a 4-hour coding session where I did a ton of programming.
Oh, nobody cares.
Bro, are you talking through half an Xbox 360 mic?
Shut up, dork.
Hey, it took me a while and I made this sick gun.
Okay.
I also started to work on my first enemy.
Don't care.
Fine. To make the gun's muzzle flash and the enemy's death, I used Unity's particle system. Look boy, go get it. Sorry about that. Danny fans are crazy. Let's just go back to what I was saying. After adding my first gun and enemy, I quickly duped the left side to the right and checked the time. And wouldn't you know it, it's 3 a.m. I had a feeling this was going to become a theme. I began day 4 by adding heart containers to my UI so you can tell when you're dying. I then took a step back, looked at the enemy's death again, and went from Rumper to Grump. Grump no like enemy death. So to give it more juice, I made this blood particle, and whenever you shoot an enemy, it leaves a blood trail on the wall. Grump like blood of enemies. Alright, relax Grump. Grump also make piggy. Grump like kill piggy. Grump make piggy rude that he mess with birdhouse. Alright Grump, we gotta calm down.
No!
Hey! Grump's taking a nap right now, so let's just show some programming and UI work. I made a wave manager script to spawn enemies.
Wow.
I then made a TV to display how many enemies are left in the current wave.
Nice.
Next, I made the enemies drop money. Oh yeah, here comes the money! But it's in Venezuelan
Bolivar.
so it's worthless now. But we'll change that soon. And it's late again, so you know the drill. Day 5. I made the parry actually parry. So whenever you right click or get hit by an enemy, it launches them away. Quick question, do you guys remember that unremarkable door from earlier? Well, we're gonna make it remarkable, and it will only take 3 simple steps.
Step 1.
Animation. I suck at pixel art, but I'm at least good enough to know that fast moving objects should move exponentially.
Step 2.
Particles for the ground when it's opening, and particles for when it slams shut.
Step 3.
If we had a good sound effect and a nice screen shake whenever it closes, it really sells the effect. And now, we've made a very good door. It's not just a door though.
I will now unveil to you my f***ing Baltorturinator!
And I like the remarkable door so much that I turned it to a remarkable floor.
Bruh.
And because the trapdoor actually works now, I need spikes to actually spike now. So I threw on an animation, sound effects, a hurt box, and some scripts to trigger it all. Now, you can send ground enemies to their death, and yourself if you're not careful. I then got tired of phasing out of existence when you died, so to make an epic player death, I made you explode into a bunch of particles, and then using feel, I made time go all slow. I then gave the robot some trash talk. You are dead. Cooked up the UI, and voila. You are dead. Since that looked good enough, I did some playtesting and realized you could just straight dip out of here. This is not good. So I set up a high security border. 3, 2, 1. And don't think you're getting out from the top either. And it was late again, but instead of sleep, I finally thought about how far I was in the project. Boy, fuck me, mate. Wasn't I supposed to make that card game? Oh yeah, and it's day 6 and I don't even have a fucking game. Uh-oh. That night, I made the new plan. The game was gonna be 3 waves. And before each wave, you're gonna roll those dice from earlier for random modifiers. Tiny enemies, speedy, money bags. And after that, you'll fight through a wave of enemies with these random effects. And once you beat the wave, you'll get access to a shop where you can upgrade your weapons. And maybe if you get far enough, rescue Steven's girlfriend too. And this was a much better plan. But we still have to actually make all that stuff, and we only have 2 days left. So, let's start by making those modifiers. Let's add some particles, a little cutscene telling you what the effect does, do some programming, and now depending on the dice number you roll, the TV will give you a modifier, like money bags, enemies drop more money,
Empty the compartments of your pantaloon.
speedy, everyone moves faster, do more damage, but take more damage.
Come here, boy!
Icy floors. Bouncy bullets.
Stop!
After bouncy bullets, I got bored of adding modifiers, so I instead made this one-way platform. And then went to work creating my most ferocious enemy in the game.
He's Frederick! He's gonna shoot your ass! He's Frederick!
As you can see, I made Frederick, who is absolutely strapped. And as you can also see, I made Frederick Sprite, because he looks like a walking fridge. But I love Frederick, so let's not be mean to him, okay? And let's contain Frederick for now, and just start making, but not finishing a bunch of things. Like the 3 waves. I first changed the amount of enemies in each round, and added a little cutscene between waves. You beat the first wave. Let's keep going. And then added different music that fades in and out too. Let's go shopping. But only for the first 2 levels. I then started work on the final challenge to beat the game, and it will be easier to just show you. Your final challenge. Roll a 7 or higher to survive. Risk it for the biscuit. That's right, a 50-50 gamble where your heart goes
Dun 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 dun.
then you hit the dice. It's all slow motion. And I'm like, am I gonna win? Am I gonna lose? And then, spoiler alert, I didn't make it yet. Because I didn't want to make cutscenes anymore. So, I instead made some new weapons. An SMG and an AK. But, there's currently no way to get these weapons. So, I need to start the shop. But, I don't finish shop. This is very bad. I need to go to sleep and only have half the waves done, half the modifiers done, half an ending done, and half a shop done. Yeah, Donnie, it's chalked. Oh no. It's the last day of the game jam, and I only had about 75% of a game, so I need to lock in. Let's start with the half-done ending. Whenever you win the dice roll,
Congratulations! Congratulations!
the TV will explode. Then I made a cutscene of you rescuing Steven's girlfriend with Feel, which was based off the new Super Mario Bros. Wii ending. Of course, with a couple changes.
Damn, son.
I then scraped together a Win UI to do a bit of shameless promo.
Subscribe! 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 Subscribe!
And that little bit took me 2.5 hours, which I wouldn't mention, but it was 3:30, and I had to go to a family party. Hey, look who's here. How's it going, man? Yeah, alright, just making a game in 7 days. Oh yeah, what's that about? Alright, Donnie, just don't talk about Frederick. He is wanted in multiple countries, and we'll be good. Hello? Hello?
He's Frederick!
You need to leave!
After leaving as fast as I possibly could, it was 7 p.m. and I have 11 hours till the deadline, and still don't have anywhere near a finished game. I'm freaking out about not finishing, but I just need to make my last big push. We have Freddy patrolling the ground, so we need an enemy to patrol the sky. So let's make
Helicopter! Helicopter!
Yes, I made a flying machine. Shut up about it. This thing will just chase you around, firing bullets and being a pest. But if you look carefully, whenever you kill it, a piggy is actually inside. But now I need to make the rest of the modifiers that I didn't make earlier. So let's add martyrdom. Enemies explode on death. Extra enemies. Windy projectiles. Bullets move upwards. Tiny enemies.
Oh, look at the little baby.
Move slower. Look out below. Grenades will spawn at the top. And that took a good amount of time, but we have the main mechanic finished. Now, we need the shop to not just steal my money. So I did some programming, and now, if we give Steven a coin worth $1 grillion, we can restore our health, buy a new heart container, and upgrade our weapon. Since I was making UI, I also made an options menu to quit and control your sound. We now have Steven, who's getting stronger every round, and by the end of the game, it would just be too easy. So we need to make some enemies who are also stronger. But we don't have time to do anything crazy, so let's modify these guys and make them faster, stronger, more grippy. Enemies to surpass Matt. Wait, we're missing one. Enemy stronger than Frederick. The new most dangerous enemy in the game. Bub. And there's now 3 hours and 30 minutes until the deadline. But I now have an army and I can see the end in sight. All I needed to make was the last round for our enemy spawner. So let's make 3 waves with our new strong enemies. Then let's add a couple of cutscenes in between with feel. Now it's time for the final wave. And then a trigger to the dice roll at the end of the game. And bam, we're done with the game, kinda. I now need to play test and make sure it actually works. Not something you want to be doing 2.5 hours before the deadline, but it's almost 4 AM, so better this than programming.
Game break. Iceberg. Game break. Iceberg. Game break. Iceberg. Game don't break. Very good.
And now, with 1 hour to go and my game finished, I was ready to submit, but I made
A very big mistake.
I didn't realize, but I had the game made for Windows, and I needed it to be made for WebGL, so you can play in the browser. And all I had to do to fix this was press this button. Easy, right? It took 50 minutes to build the game, and I had literally 5 minutes to upload and scramble my page together. By the time I submitted, it was telling me how many seconds I had remaining. But I got it in. And at 6 AM, that's all that mattered. I then went from 100 to 0 very quickly. I was going to sleep. So, how did the game turn out? Just like you guys, I had no clue what game I was even making until the first time I played it. So let's boot up the game and show you Risk to Survive. I really like my menu. You got Steven's girlfriend introducing the story.
Help! Help me!
And when you click the text, it makes sounds.
Brackeys.
You guys want to see?
Not menu.
You start off by busting your way out of your cage, and then rolling for modifiers. Extra enemies move slower. Then, and the combat was actually very punchy and snappy. The enemies were actually difficult if you let them pile up, and if you miss your timing on your parries, you will die. But if you pray for good modifiers, get enough money for upgraded weapons, avoid getting wrecked by Frederick and Bob, and manage to beat all the waves, you of course get the final dice roll, which would normally be terrifying, but I never said what happens if you fail the final dice roll, because I never made it. Never gamble, kids. It's always rigged. So, did I make a good game? Yeah, it's not bad. Did I make a good Game Jam game? I accomplished most of what I wanted to do, make a full polished game in a week, but that's not really what game jams are about. Game jams are for making one really cool idea and polishing the heck out of it. I learned I was idling way too much time on the game. Like I had
Damn,
60 hours of
son.
footage, and at least 10 to 15 hours were AFK. I also learned a lot from this project on the editing side. First, instead of telling the time by doing f***ing trigonometry to find the point I was at in the video, record zoomed out, so I can just look. Second, don't accidentally record your microphone and gameplay audio on the same track, so all the audio in my 60 hours of footage sounds like. But the last thing I learned is for my next video, I'm definitely gonna keep the scope of the project more contained, so there's not as much bouncing around and a much better story, but mainly because I spent way too long on this video, which was supposed to be a fun little project and ended up being by far the longest and most complicated video I ever made, and took way longer than actually making the game. So let's try to get 100 likes to make my suffering worth it. All modifiers acquired. So let's modify these guys.
He's Frederick!
That's hard of a voice.